Sally is strengthening and headed for the North Gulf Coast. Good Sunday evening, I'm Mike Naso with the latest tropical video update. We have a lot to cover out there. You can see on the screen there, Tropical Storm Sally here in the Gulf of Mexico, forecast to be a potent hurricane and drench the North Gulf Coast. We have Hurricane Paulette out here headed for Bermuda, as well as what's left of Renee and a tropical depression. We'll talk about all this in this tropical video update. Let's start with Sally, since it's closest and the biggest threat to the United States. As of 4 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Eastern, Tropical Storm Sally was at 27.8 north, 85.9 west. Winds are 60 miles per hour, so it's a mid-range tropical storm. The aircraft have been flying out there, and they're reporting a steady pressure. So even though it's strengthening, it's still organizing. It's moving west-northwest at 9. It is forecast to become a hurricane by tomorrow and then make landfall by Tuesday in the general vicinity of southeastern Louisiana, maybe the Mississippi Delta. And we do have a hurricane warning in effect from Morgan City, Louisiana to Ocean Springs, Mississippi. This does include Lake Pontchartrain, Lake Maurepas, and metropolitan downtown New Orleans, okay? We also have a hurricane watch from east of Ocean Springs to the Alabama-Florida border, as well as a tropical storm warning from east of Ocean Springs to Indian Pass, and from Intracoastal City to west of Morgan City, because you can see the wind field is about 120 miles, but it could expand as Sally moves closer. Again, the computer models are in general agreement, a very slow movement here that's going to prolong the agony of rainfall and gusty winds. Some of the hurricane models have backed off a bit on intensity, and you can see this is the HMON as of 12Z. It makes Sally a major hurricane, a Category 3 there, and then it makes landfall right near areas of the Mississippi-Alabama border. Still a powerful hurricane landfall. And again, whether or not it holds its own or starts to weaken as it moves inland, it's all a moot point. We're going to have a very, very serious threat of gusty winds, heavy rain, and surge. Remember with Hurricane Laura last month, Louisiana, this whole North Gulf Coast is so low-lying, so marshy, they get very, very high storm surges. This is the current forecast thinking from the experimental forecast graphic from the Hurricane Center. Lake Borgne, Lake Pontchartrain, anywhere from 4 to 11 feet in these areas, 7 to 11 in this mouth of the Mississippi River. So if an area like Buras, Louisiana, or areas here in Plaquemines Parish, you guys could be underwater if Sally moves in and you get that onshore flow. We also have Ocean Springs, the Alabama border, 4 to 7 feet. That's 7 feet of water. That's a lot. Not to mention 2 to 4 feet in Mobile Bay, to say nothing of the water rise all along the Florida Panhandle. So again, storm surge is a very, very serious threat with Sally. Here's the visible satellite imagery, and I put the land masses in magenta so that you could see them. The center of Sally is somewhere in this general area. So it doesn't look all that hot. I mean, it's trying, but there still are you see these clouds here? That's still wind shear. It's trying to get underneath that high-pressure anticyclone. I'll show you that in a second. So you can see on the infrared, it's looking a little bit peakish, but it's trying. A lot of heavy rainfall off the west coast of Florida, thunderstorms blowing up here over the Panhandle and the Big Bend, and you can see the little lightning strikes in there, a lot of lightning. So Sally is strengthening, but it's doing so very slowly. However, that slow motion should allow it to stay over water and intensify. Here's the upper level wind shear, and again you can see this very favorable clockwise anticyclone. And once Sally gets underneath that, the environment as far as wind shear should be much better, to say nothing of the warm waters. So Sally is expected to strengthen into a hurricane, at least a high-end Category 1, maybe a Category 2. So that is a powerful storm, and it should be treated as such. You can see the rainfall is going to be nasty. Look at this. 15, 20 inches, maybe more, over some of these islands here right off the area of New Orleans, the Mississippi Delta. So if you're in Gulfport, Waveland, Biloxi, Slidell, oh, get ready. Remember, every drop of water that falls into New Orleans has to be pumped out because they built a city inside of a bowl. And we do have an excessive rainfall outlook for this area. So remember, it's not the strength of a storm when it comes to rainfall, it's how fast it's moving. I like to show this graphic to give some example. If Sally slows down to 5 miles an hour or less, you could be talking about rainfall 25 inches. Okay? If it was moving at 20 miles an hour, it'd be much, much lower with the rainfall. So again, you don't want heavy rain on the Gulf Coast, especially near New Orleans with their flood threat, and you certainly don't want it slow moving. And we could have that with Sally. Here's the key messages on Sally as of 5 p.m., 4 p.m. Central from the Hurricane Center. Number 1, an extremely dangerous and life-threatening storm surge is expected for areas outside the Southeast Louisiana Hurricane and Storm Damage Risk Reduction System. Okay? And there is a storm surge warning in effect for that area. Residents, listen to local officials. Number 2, hurricane conditions are expected by late Monday, late tomorrow, within portions of that hurricane warning area: Morgan City, Ocean Springs, New Orleans. Tropical storm conditions are going to begin tomorrow earlier, so preparations need to be rushed to completion in those areas. And finally, number 3, Sally could continue to produce flash flooding across northern Florida, prolong existing minor river flooding across western Florida, and again, widespread significant flash flooding and minor to isolated major river flooding is likely across southeast Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama straight through the middle of the week. And you can see that graphic there on the bottom. That is a lot of heavy rain just hanging around there. So if you're in Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, you guys need to be ready to get drenched, because Sally is going to drench you. I wanted to touch on Hurricane Paulette. As of 5 p.m., Paulette is a powerful hurricane, 85 miles an hour. It's at 30.6 north, 63.1 west. It's moving northwest at 14, straight for Bermuda. We have a hurricane warning out for Bermuda. It is forecast to strengthen and become a major hurricane as it leaves Bermuda, and then eventually loop around here as an extratropical cyclone near the Azores by Friday. Nevertheless, it is a potent hurricane. There's the visible satellite as the sun starts to go down. You can see in green there, here is the island of Bermuda. And look at that fat hole that is the eye of Paulette. That is an organizing hurricane, if ever I saw one. Quite a sight. If you're in Bermuda, tie those boats down, hunker down, and just get ready, because Paulette's going to blow through very quickly. You can see this is the radar. There's the eye starting to show up on the Bermuda radar. So again, heavy squalls are headed for you before the eye gets there. And again, it could move near or straight over the island. So for a tiny little speck in the middle of the Atlantic, you guys get hit quite frequently because we have a lot of hurricanes that turn out. For Paulette, number 1, it is expected to approach Bermuda as a hurricane today, and it'll be near the island later tonight and tomorrow, Monday. A prolonged period of strong winds, storm surge, and heavy rain is expected on Bermuda beginning this evening, and a hurricane warning is in effect for that island, and preparations to protect life and property should be rushed to completion. Number 2, the swells. We always forget about that. That's going to affect the Leeward Islands, the Greater Antilles, Bahamas, and of course the east coast of the U.S. as Paulette turns out. So don't go into the water if there's rip currents, because a lot of people get killed by these hurricanes moving out to sea off the Carolinas or off the East Coast because they go surfing or swimming and they get caught in a rip current and sucked out. Not a good thing. Finally, I want to touch on our Tropical Depression 20 as of 5 p.m. It's at 12.7 north, 37.6 west, winds of 35, moving west-northwest at 12. Should become a tropical storm named Teddy, a hurricane, and then a major hurricane, but thankfully it looks like it's going to generally move on out. You can see the forecast models here keep this storm out at sea, maybe even east of where Paulette is, which would be great news. You can see that simulated satellite, the H-Wharf model, has it as a Category 3 or 4 hurricane, and that is in 126 hours. So it could be quite a sight to see, but it will likely remain away from land. So in the final analysis, Sally is going to be a potent hurricane near the Gulf Coast. As these updates progress, it'll be more about Sally and less about the other storms. I wanted to include, of course, Paulette because it's such a dangerous hurricane for Bermuda later tonight and tomorrow. Renee, we're not going to deal with anymore. This system is going to be a powerful hurricane, but probably move on out. And then this system will also likely move on out. So right now, the focus is on our 2 storms hitting land, Sally and Paulette, both going to be powerful hurricanes impacting land. I'm Mike Naso, and I'll have more next time.